Hi everyone, welcome to Coffee, Cookies, and Crime. So today, I hope you guys have grabbed your cup of coffee or your hot drink of choice. Mine is coffee, obviously. And I grabbed a little snack here. And so here I have some shortbread cookies. And yeah, I have a true crime story to tell you guys about today. But before we start, I'm just gonna take a sip of my coffee. This story is super sad. This story I heard on actually the new Unsolved Mysteries that is on Netflix. And it is the story of Mary Ellen Deener. Now, Mary Ellen Deener was a 14-year-old girl who lived in Mansfield, Ohio. Now, she was a regular girl. She was super sweet, super nice, always laughing is how everyone talked about her. And, she had, I think, 6 other brothers and sisters. So that's a lot of siblings. And apparently they all helped out around the house, and she was just always like a great person to be around. Now, Mary Ellen sadly was murdered at 14 years old. And I'm going to talk about her story because I feel like it really needs to be brought to light, and the guy who did this needs to be brought to justice. So Mary Ellen, one night, along with her sister Brenda, who was 12 years old at the time, and Mary Ellen was 14, they had to go to the laundromat because they had done laundry like they've always done at their house, but their dryer broke and they couldn't dry their clothes. And so because of that, they had to walk down, I think they said it was only a few blocks down to the laundromat. And it was like later at night, but they felt comfortable doing so. And their mom felt comfortable letting them walk because their grandmother actually lived right next to the laundromat. So they're like, well, if anything happens, they can just run next door to their grandmother's house, right? Makes sense. But sadly, having their grandmother next door didn't help Mary Ellen. So they're drying their clothes and they've run out of change. And so Mary Ellen's like, look, I can just walk. I can just walk a few blocks down to the next laundromat and get change. Like, it's not a big deal. So she leaves Brenda, her little sister, to watch over the clothes, so that no one takes them or whatever. And she walks down to the laundromat. She walks on the laundromat. She gets the change. She's on her way back to her sister and never makes it back there. According to Brenda, she waited for Mary Ellen for a very long time, to the point where she went next door to her grandmother's house. She went to her grandmother's house and she was like, Mary Ellen hasn't come back yet. I don't know what happened. She just went to get some change so we could finish drying the clothes. So Mary Ellen's grandmother's like, okay, you wait here, and I'm just going to walk down the path that she would have taken to this laundromat to get the change. And so Mary Ellen's grandmother walking down, and as she's walking down the same road that Mary Ellen had taken, she sees police tape and she sees police lights, and she realizes that they were there because something had happened to Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen was found murdered in like an alley, and the cops were there and they had blocked everything off. And at first no one knew what happened. They just knew that she was shot twice. And the cops in this situation, I have to say, this really hit them. This really bothered them, that this 14-year-old girl was shot in this alley. And so they did everything they could to try and figure out who the heck did this. What monster would kill a 14-year-old girl, this innocent girl who didn't do anything to anyone? So they look at the bullets and they track down what kind of gun was most likely used to kill her. And they do their due diligence. They go to every like gun shop in Mansfield, Ohio, and they look at who registered what weapon, and then they hit gold. They find that the person who registered that type of gun was a person named Lester Eubanks. Now, Lester Eubanks, he apparently was known to everyone in the neighborhood because he was the type of guy who was always out. He was always on the street. He was always walking down the block. And people said things like he was a loner and he was kind of weird, right? And they would even say he walked down the street with like nunchucks. I kid you not. He had nunchucks as he was walking down the street and just practicing his little Ninja Turtle moves or whatever that was going on. So Lester Eubanks gets picked up by the Mansfield, Ohio police, and they bring him down to the station. They're like, "Guy, like you're registered for this gun that was used in the murder of a 14-year-old girl. Like, what? Like, what is going on? Where were you that night?" They didn't even have to press hard. This guy admits to the whole thing. He's like, "Yeah, I killed her. I shot her twice." And he says that he saw her walking that night and he decided, hey, I'm going to get this girl. So he takes her. And as he grabs her, she starts screaming, of course. And so she's screaming. So he puts his hand over her mouth and he drags her into this alley and he decides to shoot her twice. So he shoots her twice and then he walks away from the scene. He walks away from the scene and he goes home. He changes his clothes and starts getting ready to go to a club. A club. He just shot a 14-year-old girl twice and he goes home and gets ready to go to a club. Like, what? I don't even understand how a person can even do that. So he says he's getting ready for the club and it's downtown. So he says, before I decide to head downtown for this club, I'm just going to walk by the scene of the crime. He walks by where he shot and left this girl. And guess what? He finds that Mary Ellen is still alive. She's still alive. She's in agony, but she's still alive. So he picks up a brick and finishes her off. Like, she was still alive, and he decided that, nope, can't leave her alive. I have to finish it off, and kills her. Like, I can't even. Now, the worst thing, one of the worst things is that he had actually been out on bond because he was being accused of attempted rape. So this man was out on bond for attempted rape. Like, what? So the cops, obviously they arrest him and he goes to trial. This man testifies in trial. He testified in his trial. I don't even understand that. I don't get how he could even do that. So he testifies in his trial and he confesses to everything on the stand, and everyone that was there says that he didn't even show any remorse. Like, the family of Mary Ellen was there, and everyone just said he didn't even seem to really care about what he did to her. He just honestly just felt bad that he got caught and not that he actually killed a 14-year-old girl for no reason. So he's convicted and he is sentenced to death. So he's going to death row. Awesome, right? So let me give you guys a backstory really quick. In Mansfield, Ohio, this happened in 1966 is when he was convicted, and the death penalty and everything was intact, which is great for them because they wanted him to be executed. For her family wanted him to be executed. But over the years, his death sentence kept getting pushed back. It was pushed back, I believe, 3 times is what they said. And then by the time that he was finally going to be executed, they abolished the death penalty in Ohio. So that meant he couldn't be put to death any longer. And this really saddened the family of Mary Ellen. They wanted it, but even though he didn't get death penalty, they're like, you know what? He's still gonna spend his life in prison, right? So he gets life in prison. Everyone that was on death row in Ohio got life in prison. Awesome stuff. Great. So he's in prison, and while he's in prison, right, I guess people said he was a very charming person. Like, he's not someone you would think would be a murderer because he was so charming and he was smart. And apparently, this worked in his favor in prison because apparently he was able to really gain the trust of like the prison guards and stuff like that. So much so that he, especially because he was a painter. That's what it is too. He was a painter, and apparently he was very talented. And so I have to say, though, personally, from seeing his stuff, like I saw his stuff, yes, he was actually very, very good, I have to say. And it's like, wow, all that talent, like, wasted on this evil monster of a person, but he was very good. And so he was actually featured in a lot of different, like, I guess, publishings of, like, inmates who do art in jail and stuff like that. And so yeah, so he gains the trust of like the prison guards, and people think he can be like, reformed or whatever. So much so that they put him in this program. Now there's a program that they were running in the 60s, that pretty much inmates would be rewarded for good behavior in prison. So they would get special privileges, like they'd be able to like drive like a truck from prison to prison if they need to deliver something, and like they would be giving special privileges. And one of them was to be able to go out. They were allowed to go out on outings. And so he was able to be put into this program. And so one day he went on an outing. He got to go Christmas shopping. Like, let's listen to this. This man was on death row for killing a 14-year-old girl. He gets put into like life in prison because, death penalty is abolished. And then he gets to go Christmas shopping for his family. And he gets to go out with a bunch of other inmates in like civilian wear. Like, it's not like they're even wearing their prison like garb, with one guard to take them all out. It was him and I think 4 other inmates. So there's 5 of them with one guard. So they get to the mall. The guard tells them, hey guys, you have to be back here in a couple of hours. We're going to meet right here. Have fun. Go buy what you have to buy. So this guard didn't even stay with the inmates. The inmates got to walk amongst regular civilians, these people who were murderers, to go Christmas shopping for their loved ones. I don't know how anyone thought that was a good idea. Like, I don't understand that. But yes, this is what happened. So then, everyone's shopping. The time comes for everyone to meet up again. And lo and behold, Lester Eubanks isn't there. The other 4 inmates showed up. He did not. And so the guard, of course, alerts security and all of that, and they're searching for him. He's gone. He's long gone. So prison inmate has escaped is what's on the freaking like newspapers and stuff. And so, of course, Mary Ellen's family gets a phone call. Imagine getting this phone call. Hello? Yeah, so this is the Mansfield, Ohio police. We just want to let you know that the man who killed your daughter or sister has escaped from prison because he was out Christmas shopping with other inmates and the guard let them go off by themselves. What? Like, I don't even know how I would react to getting a news like that. But so now it's like a manhunt, right? They're looking for Lester Eubanks, and they alert the FBI. Like, they put all these like different like alerts out, right? So like different police precincts around the nation. So like, he's fleed, he's a wanted fugitive, all this stuff. So if people see him, if other police in any other state see him, they can like bring him in. This doesn't work. So he's gone. They have no idea where he is. And this was in 1973. Come to, let's say, I think like 1990, like in the 90s, um, it was a cold case for a while. They couldn't find him. But, one of the detectives decides to pick it up again. They're like, yo, we're still looking for this guy who's out in the world for the last like 20 years. Like, we need to find this guy, because they were looking, like, he's not the only like inmate who's ever fled before, So they're looking for a bunch of different inmates that have escaped before. And they realize, as they type in his name into the system to see if maybe he was picked up, and they just never got notified. Like, that happens, right? So they're like typing his name into the system, like, yes, please let him be like caught like forever ago. We just didn't know. And as they type in his name, nothing comes up. And when I mean nothing, I mean none of the alerts that had been put on him in 1973 were still in effect now. So that means that if any cop had stopped him for a traffic stop or for any reason, they would not have gotten that alert, and they would not have gotten that hit to know to bring him in. So no one knows how that happened. No one knows how those alerts were even taken off of him. And so all that on itself is just crap. So much crap, all right? So the detectives are upset, but there's nothing they can do about it. So they decide, like, we need to figure out, how to reach people to know what's going on. And they get an idea. Hey, America's Most Wanted. So they put his picture up on America's Most Wanted. So 24 hours after that happens, someone calls in and they say, hey, I know that guy. I was hanging out with that guy in the 70s. We were tight. And the cops are like, what? And he's like, yeah, we used to hang out in California. We were in LA. The cops are like, yes, we have a lead. They also find out that Lester Eubanks' cousin, who was killed years prior, his widow lived in Los Angeles. So guess who they pay the visit to? They pay the visit to the widow. They knock on her door. She opens it and she's like, oh. And they're like, hi, we're here to talk to you about your cousin-in-law, Lester Eubanks. And she spills everything. She says that after he left, he ran away from prison. He went to Michigan for a little bit, kind of worked some like house painting jobs, then took a bus to California and just showed up at her doorstep. And she had no idea he escaped from prison, but she welcomed him in because I guess family. I don't even know, to be honest. And then he stayed with her for a while, but he was very verbally abusive, I guess, and he was a bully, is what she would call him, a bully. And he was very he intimidated her a lot, and so she really wanted him out of her life. So she was like, you know what? I'm gonna get him out somehow. He needs to leave my apartment. And she decides to tell him one day, hey, the FBI called me about you. And as soon as he heard that, he was like, I'm out of here. He packed his bags and he left, and she never heard from him again, is what she says to the cops anyway. So the cops are like, okay, do you know where he might have worked prior? And she's like, yeah, I do. So she gives them, his workplace. They go over there. He did work there, but it wasn't under Lester Eubanks. He was there under the alias Victor Young, okay? And the way that he was able to work this way is, one, he had a false social security, but he also got himself I believe, hunting license, because you don't have to give fingerprints for hunting licenses. So he would use that as a form of ID. What? This man was actually smart. He knew how to not get caught, So, but then the people at the place where he was working were like, yeah, he used to work here, but this was in the 80s, because now we're in the 90s. But he, we haven't seen him since. So they're like, crap. we lost this lead. Like, we don't know where else to look right now. This sucks. So they tried to do more digging for a few more years. Nothing comes of it. They've lost Lester Eubanks once again. So then, fast forward, 2003 comes in. 2003, mind you, okay? This man escaped in 1973. This is 2003 now. Like, this is insane. So, again, a guy's like, hey, we're trying to solve these cases of escaped, inmates. Do you want to, help me out? And the other detective in Mansfield, Ohio is like, yeah, sure. Who are you looking for? Lester Eubanks. All right, let's try and figure out what this guy is. They realize, hey, how about we hit up his dad? His dad, why not, right? So apparently his dad, Lester Eubanks' father, worked with the church, and he was working with inmates and trying to help reform them and counsel them and all this other crap, right? So they go down and they talk to Lester Eubanks' dad, and they're like, hey, do you know where your kid is? Like, what's going on with that? And his dad's like, look, I don't really want to talk about him, but, nothing can bring her back. Talking about Mary Ellen. And he says to them, people change and people move on with their lives and all this stuff. And the cops are like, what? Aren't you a man of God? What do you mean? They're like, do you feel like justice was served in this case? And he's just like, people change. And that's all he had to say. They're like, that's fishy. He knows where his kid is the way he's talking, right? So the cops are like, So, luckily for them, they end up talking to an associate of the father's who's like, I was hanging out with him one day. He got a phone call. And after he got off, he's like, oh, sorry. That was my one of my kids in Alabama. He's doing house painting jobs and stuff, and he was just on break, so he just wanted to call me real quick. I'm sorry for the interruption. She was like, oh, that's fine, cool. So the cops, they dig, right? So, because obviously, Lester Eubanks had siblings. So they look into it, and none of the siblings were in Alabama at the time. So they're like, that has to be Lester Eubanks. And so they track the phone call and figure out where it came from. And they realize it came from an actual, a youth center in Alabama. They're like, what? So they're like, we have to get down there. They race down there. They get there. And the people are like, yeah, we had this guy work here. Yeah, he used to work here, all this stuff. But that was a while ago. That was months ago. He left. He doesn't work here anymore. But he was here. And they're like, oh my God, we missed him by a couple of months? What the heck? And so, sadly, I really wish I could tell you guys that, yeah, he got caught. Lester Eubanks is caught and great. It's over. But no, it's 2020 and he's still not caught. He's still out there. They don't know where he is. And this is why Unsolved Mysteries is so important, because now this brings more attention to this case, because it's been forever and he still isn't caught. This 14-year-old girl was murdered and no justice was served whatsoever. And so Lester Eubanks is still out there and he needs to get caught. So yeah, this case really, when I heard it, really, really irked me and really bothered me, which is why I really wanted to do this video about it. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about this case in the comment section. I just find it so sad, and I feel so bad for Mary Ellen's family because they haven't gotten any closure from this, they thought this man was going to be put to death, and then he wasn't. They thought he was going to spend the rest of his life in prison, and then he wasn't. It's not fair. It's really unfair. And so, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, if you guys have any cases you guys want me to do, please let me know in the comment section. And yeah, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.